already on. Yeah. Sorry. All right, we good? Okay. So we've all been taught ever since we were born that murder is wrong. But on what pretenses are we speaking when we say murder is wrong? Are we talking about a higher power? Do we believe in God and that, if we do commit such a horrible sin that we're going to go to hell? Or, maybe we have no religious affiliation whatsoever and we're just believing strictly in the law in itself. And society has set the bounds saying this is what is morally right and this is what is morally wrong. And society has said that murder is morally wrong. And because of this, people can go to jail or, depending on what state you're in, face the death penalty for murdering somebody. So the speech that I'm going to cover is not to convince you, not to change your political opinion about death, but more just to give you the facts on what's brought to our attention here. Assisted suicide is a common practice in 5 states as of right now. Washington and Oregon have the highest death rates for assisted suicide. Now, the definition of assisted suicide is, not giving somebody a gun so that way they can kill themselves. I'm talking medically speaking. So if somebody's terminally ill, a doctor is able to give that person a choice, and if they're suffering that much, they're able to kill themselves. And this is either through medication or, well, majority of the time it's through medication. Now, the death rates in Wyoming and Oregon, between the both of them, were 250 deaths combined just last year. Euthanasia is also a common practice, but euthanasia is not legal in the United States. And these two have a very fine line between them. Euthanasia is the act of somebody being terminally ill and then the family deciding, or a guardian deciding for them to pull the plug, essentially, because they're not able to make that decision themselves. But it also says in the guidelines for euthanasia that there's a voluntary euthanasia, which means that the person is conscious and is able to make that decision for himself, which overlaps with assisted suicide. So if euthanasia is illegal across the country, but assisted suicide is legal, the only thing that's changing is if you put, or who you're basically putting the hands of your life in. So do you trust your family that much to make that decision for you in euthanasia? Or do you want to just make that decision yourself? This comes back to abortion also. When an abortion is killing a fetus or a child, basically, before it's born. Abortion is legal across the United States. The number of abortions last year alone was 121 million. That's just in the U.S. So I'm not saying, maybe your views are that isn't a child, in the mother's womb. That's for your own sake. But people might also say, well, what if the woman who is going to have the child was raped? Or what if they knew there was going to be complications after birth? and was going to make it very difficult for that child to survive. Only 1% of abortions were due to rape, and only 6% were due to complications after birth. I'm not saying that's justifying it, but I'm just saying the stats that are there. So 92% of all the other abortions was because the child was either unwanted or they couldn't financially depend, the family couldn't financially depend for that child. So they just thought the best idea would be to kill it. So bringing it back between assisted suicide, euthanasia, and abortion, all three of them are separate topics, but they're very tightly knit. And if the U.S. is able to say murder is wrong, then why do we have all these cross lines where euthanasia is illegal, but it does cross with assisted suicide, which is still legal in 5 states? Speaking, you can still kill yourself if you're terminally ill. And abortion, which is legal across the board, where it's up to the child has no say in this either. So, you know, when you come to assisted suicide, at least it's that individual taking charge over his or her own life. But when that child isn't born yet, they don't have a say. So isn't that essentially euthanasia by killing that child before it's born? That's a question you have to think about when discussing these issues later on in life. Thank you.